Just breathe. We got 2 minutes. What clock we looking at? We go slow. Ours is fast.
Okay, we'll call to order the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority Board of Directors meeting Wednesday, July 20th, 2016 at 6 p.m. Have a roll call, please.
Lux.
Here.
Vice President Whitfield.
Here.
Secretary at Brushy's.
Here.
Director Grimes.
Here.
Director Leffingwell.
Here.
Director Navarrete.
Here.
Okay, agenda item 3, citizens communication. This time in our meeting, if there's anybody that has concerns regarding the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority, their time to get up and address the board. Nobody, eh? We'll close item 3. Agenda item 4A. Consider approval of the BCRUA meeting minutes for June 15, 2016.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Passes. Now we'll call item 5A, executive session. Consider executive session as authorized by 55.1.071 Government Code related to the consultation with the board's attorneys regarding contemplated litigation related to disputes regarding the design and/or construction of the water treatment plant. We'll adjourn until we get back into regular session. Call to order the Board of Directors meeting, July 20th, 2016. If nobody opposes, I'd like to go ahead and move agenda item 8 up. Go ahead and do that. So director's closing comment, well, it wouldn't be closing comments, but director comments regarding items of community interest. At this point, I'd like to welcome Jeff.
Frank.
Who's Jeff?
What's your new nickname?
I'll answer anything
I was
you
thinking
call me.
Leffingwell, and then for some reason I was like, Jeff, okay. Frank, sorry, apologize for that.
That's on the record
Welcome,
too,
Frank.
man.
and,
Thank you.
His new name.
Forward to working with you, and I hope you have any questions or anything, just let us know at any time.
I will, thank you.
And I'd like to thank Ron. I'd like to go ahead and do a small presentation for your leadership. Now, if you have anybody take pictures, just go ahead and present this plaque to you. It's got the golden gavel. In recognition of your dedication and efforts on behalf of Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority, a regional partnership with Cedar Park, Leander, and Round Rock from July 2015 to July 2016, exactly 1 year. All right, thank you very much for this. And an empty box.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if anybody else would like to say anything, or Chris?
Congratulations on your outgoing, congratulations on your incoming, John.
Yeah.
Are we doing all of them now?
Joey?
Okay. I just wanted to thank Tom and Jason yesterday for giving us a tour. We met Frank over there and did a tour of the plant. I hadn't been out there in quite a while, so it was good to see everything up and running and doing well. So thank you for taking the time to do that. So thanks.
Frank?
Thank you for letting me join. I'm really looking forward to this. And congratulations, Ron, on your year. And John, looking forward to serving under you. And I'll add my thanks along with Chris's for the tour that we received the other day of the plant. It was very impressive. And again, just looking forward to being a part and working with you. Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Anything else, Connor?
You have anything?
Nope.
I just want to say, Frank, just make sure, because I remember when I came on this board, I had I was handed a book this thick and said, "Here you go." It was the book that had all the problems with the. I was like, "Oh." That's all I had. So don't be wary of asking questions to try to get up to speed as fast as possible, because it is this is totally a different thing was for me to try to deal with it. So there is a learning curve, I think. So we're all here to help. So just ask all the questions.
Thank you. I'll do my best to make sure you regret saying it was okay to ask as many questions as I wanted to.
sure those questions are asked in numbers less than a quorum.
Good point.
Welcome, Frank. I look forward to working with you. And John, look forward to. I think I look forward to working with you, but I'm not exactly sure. First meeting. If they're all to nominate someone else to be on the board instead for Cedar Park.
All gonna have these, booklets.
Yeah, I'm not sure. If it's indicative of your meetings, I'm not sure, but.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'd like to go ahead and continue with the agenda. Item 6A, consider a staff overview regarding the BCRUA quarterly investment report for March 31st, 2016 through June 30th, 2016.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are no really significant changes to report right now. Yields are still low, as we all know. We are looking at making some changes at the recommendation of Patterson Associates, our investment advisors, and just late this afternoon, I got an email from them indicating that there are some potential savings that we can make by moving some of our escrow and construction funds into a different investment profile, and it looks pretty good. So it's not a huge amount, but anything we can do to increase the interest on the money that we're not using right now is a benefit. So other than that, though, no significant changes this quarter.
All right, thank you. Going on to item 7A, resolutions. Consider a resolution approving the BCRUA annual operating budget for fiscal year 2016 to 2017, subject to the approval of the participating cities.
Thank you, Mr. President. We actually are nearing completion at the end of September of our first, essentially, full year of normal operation at the plant, and it's been interesting, but it's been fun. And we do have a working plant, and I'd like to repeat for any of the board members, you're more than welcome to come out at any time. We'd love to show you around. In addition to our normal operations, we're looking at expanding our operations next year to meet the needs of our partner cities, especially Cedar Park and Leander. Round Rock has completed their interchange to the system, but is not anticipating they'll need any water next year from us. In terms of the rest of the operation, right now we are treating about a third of our plant capacity, a little over 5, sometimes 6 million gallons a day. We're essentially doing that in one shift and operating the plant at full capacity, which is very unwieldy. It's a real challenge for the operators to do that. You're starting up a major plant, running it at 15 to 17 million gallons a day as a rate, and then shutting it down a few hours later. So all of the cities have agreed that by this time next year, in the next fiscal year, in the summer period, the demands are going to be up substantially for Cedar Park and Leander. And so we're anticipating that it would make sense to go ahead and move up to 24-hour-a-day operation at the plant. So you'll see increases across the budget, especially in the area of power, chemicals, things like that, because of the additional water that we'll be treating. We'll be putting out a little over 2 billion gallons of water next year. That's our anticipated amount. And we'll also be increasing staffing in order to be able to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll be adding 4 additional operator positions. As with the previous operators, they'll be hired for us through cooperation with the City of Leander. So there'll be City of Leander employees who will then bill BCRUA for reimbursement by all 3 partners. We will not need those 4 operators the entire fiscal year. We really need to have them on board and ready to go to operate the plant by the beginning of the peak summer season. So we budgeted them at about 2/3 of the year, at about 8 months each. So I would anticipate that around the first of the year, we'll be starting to put out advertisements, and we'll try to stagger the hiring so that we don't have them all come on board at once. And by, I'd say, first to the middle of May of next year, we would expect to have them on board and be able to operate the plant on a 24-hour basis if need be. And that'll be better for all 3 cities. If any of the 3 cities had an emergency with their existing water treatment plants or water supply and needed us to very quickly ramp up our production to provide additional water to them, when we're on a 24-hour mode, we'll be able to do that easily. Right now, we could do it, but we're limited. So next year, we'll be able to do really, I think, what the plant was envisioned to do from the very beginning. So we're pretty excited about it, but it does cost more. So the OC and I have worked through the budget pretty carefully, and We think it reasonably reflects what we need to get the job done in the next fiscal year. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody's got them.
You answered my questions I was going to ask, what the increases were for, so, because I saw there's a significant increase in the budget, so I think you've answered it
Absolutely.
very succinctly.
All for you people in Leander.
What are you talking about? You said Cedar Park. The other question is, do you have I mean, we're at 5 to 6 gallons per day. What do you think it's going to be when you switch over to the?
24-hour.
We may average 6 over the course of the year if the two cities cut way back in the winter. But
Right.
I would anticipate our total production during the summer peak period, I don't know, guys, what do you think? Maybe around 10?
Okay.
We'll
That's what I
see
was
a
thinking.
significant increase next
Okay.
year, especially during the summer peak where it's most critical.
Yeah, and the only question, Tom had answered this earlier, but I just wanted to kind of bring it up. I asked about the communications, because in my mind, I was just thinking cell phones or landlines, and there was a significant jump, and it reminded me that, you know, how you communicate with the equipment and so forth, and so a lot of that stuff needs to be replaced or repaired. And
It's radio-based equipment.
Yeah, radio-based equipment, so I appreciate that. Thank
We
you.
have a number of chemical pumps that have basically worn out, even though they haven't been used very much. They're 7 and 8 years old, and they're difficult to replace, to get parts for, because they're no longer current. So we're seeing a number of things like that. But we're catching up. As the plant operates on a routine basis, we're finding those things, those weak points, and repairing and replacing as needed.
Other questions? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions,
I
comments?
don't think we can second,
I'll second.
yeah. Can't,
Oh, yeah.
separate cities.
Oh, okay. Can't do
I
that.
didn't realize they were sitting next to each other.
Yeah. Okay, got a motion and a second. We got that?
He was
You got-
too
Monique, you got that? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes. Item 7E. Move on to item 7B, consider resolution authorizing the president. Actually, I'd like to go ahead and I'll call 7B, 7C, 7H, and 7I together, unless anybody opposes, since they're all kind of dealing with the same agenda item.
Okay.
So I'll call 7B, consider resolution authorizing the president to execute an engagement letter with Specialized Public Finance Company for municipal advisory services. Item 7C, consider resolution authorizing the president to execute an agreement letter with First Southwest for municipal advisory services related to the issuance of City of Leander contract revenue bonds. And item 7H, consider resolution authorizing the issuance of Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority, City of Round Rock, Texas contract revenue funding bonds. And 7I, consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority, City of Cedar Park, Texas contract revenue refunding bonds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gary Kimball with SPFI is here to make a presentation and answer any questions you've got. I would just say up front, this is kind of a happy coincidence that Round Rock was looking to refinance some of their debt and ask for a re-rate, I guess, by the bond rating agencies. And doggone it if they didn't throw BCRUA in when they issued the re-rate and upgraded us. So it created an opportunity, which is part of the reason why your packets are so darn thick tonight, is because everyone's scrambling to take advantage of a historically low bond market. At the same time, we got a historically high, for us, bond rating. So a nice coincidence. Gary?
Hi, Gary Kimball with Specialized Public Finance. Maybe we should take care of the housekeeping item first. You've got a representative from First Southwest here as well. The contractual arrangement for financial advisory services had been subcontractors arrangement with us being a subcontractor of First Southwest Company. The regulatory landscape has changed since we did the last bond issue in 2009, and we're proposing that we simply have direct engagements for each firm with the BCRUA. And so I think that takes care of item 7B and 7C. The contracts are identical to the existing arrangement between the BCRUA and First Southwest Company, and then through them to us. So there's no change contemplated on that front, but I wanted to maybe ask if you could act on those two items first, because that satisfies the regulators with respect to the advice that will then dispense related to the refinancings.
Legal question, Gary, do they need to be acted on separately?
Yeah, I think they should be. Yeah, they're two separate engagements.
And if we want, those items were all called together, so long as we're clear on the motions, we can take motions on 7B and 7C and then proceed with the others.
And I should mention to the board, I believe we also have bond counsel represented as well, I'm guessing, or,
That's correct. For the record, I'm Richard Donahue with McCall Partners to discuss either item on, any questions on the resolutions.
I recognize your emails, but I hadn't met you face to face yet. Thanks, Richard.
No, I think as Tom says, this is a, great opportunity, so. Any other questions or?
And the way we're setting this up is because our firm represents both Cedar Park and Round Rock, we're proposing that we would be engaged directly with the BCRUA on behalf of any bonds issued pursuant to the contracts with only Cedar Park and with Round Rock, and then First Southwest Company would be the advisory firm engaged directly with BCRUA on behalf of any bonds issued pursuant to the contract with the City of Leander.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion for 7B?
Motion to approve.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor, say, for item 7B, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Item 7B passes. Thank you. Do I have a motion for 7C?
Motion approved.
Second.
And a second for item 7C. All those in favor say, or any questions? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Item 7C passes.
Thank you very much. So the next two items are the real meat of the presentation, and I'll direct your attention to a rate graph that you should each have in front of you. This is about as good as it gets. This is a 10-year look back of tax-exempt interest rates for revenue bonds. It's a commonly used index. It's the Bond Buyers 25 Revenue Bond Index. And if you were to take this back all the way until the first issuance of tax-exempt bonds in the United States, this would still represent the all-time low. If you look in the statistics box, that last metric, percent of time that rates have been higher than they are currently, 100% of the time. Low in the past couple of weeks, and we remain there. We're bouncing off of it right now. So obviously, the timing is very advantageous. That's the reason we wanted to get on this agenda just as quickly as we could. We've been working with, we had a two-step process really to get green lighted to proceed with the Round Rock and Cedar Park portions of the refunding. First step was to go to the Water Development Board and get their consent to move ahead with the advance refunding of those Series 2009 bonds. We got that sign-off several weeks ago, and then Tax Council ran with that. We got that sign-off about a week and a half ago that they were satisfied that the excess proceeds that the authority continues to sit on wouldn't cause a problem with respect to the refinancing relative to IRS rules. We cleared both of those hurdles successfully, and would like to draw your attention to the savings potential for the two city deals that we've got before you today. Maybe start with the Cedar Park transaction. These are not identical pieces of paper in front of you. One says Round Rock up in the top box, and one says Cedar Park. So we'll start with the Cedar Park summary. We're looking at just under $21 million worth of bonds maturing between 2021 and 2038 at an average coupon of just under 5%, 4.99%. The goals here are to reduce the interest rate. We would not extend the final maturity on the existing debt and produce debt service savings. And if you look in the results box, we think we can bring the interest rate down into the low threes. So, over a 150 basis point, 160 basis point reduction in the interest rate, 35, 36% compared to where we are right now. Go down to the bold numbers, just to focus your attention on the savings, and we can talk about some of the details of the transaction itself. We think we can bring the debt service down net of all issuance costs by over $1.9 million. That's realized over a 22-year period, almost $87,000 a year. and the net present value of that stream of cash flows is over $1.3 million, or just over 6% of the face amount of the bonds being refinanced. The industry standard for a refunding transaction that's in the money is net present value savings of over 3% of the face value. So this is more than 2 times in the money,
a no-brainer.
relative to the standard benchmark in our industry. So this is a deal obviously that we would recommend moving ahead with, and the way to do that is to approve the resolution, which would delegate authority to allow us to get into the market just as quickly as we possibly can. It won't require any further action by the board. It would delegate pricing authority to a pricing officer who would have to live within certain parameters contained in the resolution, and not to exceed par amount, a minimum net present value savings, and a stipulation that we not extend the maturity on the underlying debt. And those provisions are contained in that resolution. And then maybe shifting gears to go over the Round Rock details. This one is a little over 2 times as advantageous. Got almost $55 million worth of debt that is advance refundable at almost the identical average coupon. There's a slight difference in the way each city structured its debt when it was originally issued, so there are going to be slight variations in the underlying bonds, just depending upon the amounts and when they mature. But within 1/100th of a percent in terms of the interest rate on the old series. Same transactions goals, and again, we can bring the interest rate down into the low 3s.
So
Net
Gary,
debt service, excuse me.
Gary, so this true interest cost that's in that box, that 3.13 and the 3.29,
Yeah.
is that the interest rate?
That would be the rate on the new bonds. So what we do with a refunding transaction in the municipal bond world is we issue new, quote, refunding bonds at today's current low interest rates. Mm-hmm. Take the proceeds of those bonds and stick them in an escrow. That escrow then takes over the payments on the old bonds until the old bonds reach their call date, which in both cases occurs in August of 2019.
So the difference in those rates, is it based on the amount of money, or is it based on the cities?
It's based on the structure. Each city had a different structure because we set the entity up in such a way as to be able to tailor the payments that each city has under its contract and under the bonds that are issued, so that each city issues a separate series of debt. So the difference in the rate here just reflects a little different original debt structure from each of the cities. Okay. Round Rock's was a little more front-end loaded compared with Cedar Park, and both Round Rock and Cedar Park are more front-end loaded than Leander just because of ability to pay. Leander's having to grow into a lot more infrastructure than the other 2 cities.
Thank you.
Just to pick up the savings opportunity related to the Round Rock piece of this would be over $6.4 million of debt service reduction realized over the same 22-year period, but in this case, a little over $290,000 a year of actual savings, and the net present value of that is a little over $4.5 million, or in this case, 8.27% of the face amount. So this one's almost 3 times in the money in relative terms. So, any way you slice it, these are very attractive transactions from our vantage point. And I would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. We're going to need to do bond documents following your action on the resolution. We've only ever sold bonds to the Texas Water Development Board, so we're going to need to prepare open market type bond offering documents. We're in the process of doing that right now. And then we'll need to go get both cities' bonds rated as it relates to the pledge of O&M contract payments for the BCRUA. So the plan right now is that we would be in the market probably the last week of August, locking this down. We still need an action by each of the city councils to confirm this, and we're proposing that would take place probably at the August 18th meeting, for Round Rock, and I think we're trying to target the same week for Cedar Park.
Do we need to add that to the resolution language?
No, I don't believe you do. It's going to be handled to the individual cities.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion for item 7H?
Motion to approve.
1 second.
Motion and a second. Any other further questions? All those in favor of item 7H, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Item 7H has passed. I have a motion for item 7I.
Motion to approve.
1 second.
I have a motion and second for item 7I. Any questions? All those in favor of item 7I, say
Aye.
say aye. Sorry. I just drove in from Houston. I'm still halfway between. All those opposed, say nay.
Different dialect.
Yeah. All right. Item 7I has been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I guess we'll see you back at our individual council meetings.
Correct, yeah. And then as soon as we get the rates locked and actually have hard numbers for the savings, we'll send out probably information directly to Tom, and then he can distribute it to the board.
Very much.
Mr. President, I might add, I'm assuming that Leander and First Southwest will be coming back to the board relatively soon, and we'll go through the same procedure for them and their refi.
We get back on the regular agenda. Item 7D, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute a supplemental agreement number 6 with CDM Smith and Company for water treatment plant Phase 1A.
Motion to approve payment of supplemental 6, subject to conditions as established by the general manager and the BCRUA council.
Okay, have a motion and a second for item 7D. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Item 7D passes. All item 7E, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute agreement with Weaver and Tidewell LLP for annual financial audit services.
Thank you, Mr. President. We recently issued an RFQ for auditing services. The auditor that we've had since the beginning on BCRUA was Brockway, Gersbach, Franklin, and Niemeyer. And we decided it was time to go out and take a look in the market, and we got 4 responses, which are listed in the agenda review sheet that I gave you. I did not actually score the responses. I'm not a financial expert. I left that to the folks with the 3 cities. And their ranking showed Weaver and Tidwell LLP as the top-ranked firm making the proposal. And we have worked out an agreement with them. We weren't quite ready last month, so I pulled it, but we are ready this month. And we think we've got a good agreement with them, and they're pretty excited about it. I talked to them this afternoon, and the staff recommends that the contract be awarded to Weaver and Tidwell it's a 1-year contract with 3 1-year extensions doable, but each extension will have to be brought back to the board for separate action. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other considerations or questions? I would just like to thank Brockway, Gersbach, Franklin, and Niemeyer for their years of service to the BCRA. I think they did a great job, so just appreciate that.
I'll pass that along to them.
Yeah, thank you. Again, it's not then, I guess, because the RFP process wasn't because they were inadequate or anything like that. It's just that competitive process, and that's why we do put it out there for that. So
And
just appreciate they did a good job for the service. So appreciate it. If you could pass that on.
Will do.
Okay. All those in favor, item 7E, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Item 7E has passed. Item 7G, consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute an engineering services agreement for Phase 1B capacity re-rate with HDR Engineering and Company.
Thank you, Mr. President. the Phase 1B capacity re-rate has always been anticipated for the plant facilities, but was not anticipated to be done until the plant was up and running smoothly and normally. Whenever you design a plant and construct a plant, the state administrative authority, regulatory authority, will establish the total capacity available in the plant in a very conservative way. Once you have operating history at the plant, then it's possible to go in and run a series of complex tests to determine exactly what the maximum rate is through the plant. And once you've done that according to their rules and standards, then you bring that data back to them, submit it, answer any questions they've got, and hopefully in the end you get an updated capacity issued by the state agency, in this case TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. So we have worked out an agreement with HDR to perform this for us. I want to add there is no construction involved with this, and there's no design of facilities per se. We're actually designing a test protocol and then running the protocol and collecting data and then using HDR to interface with TCQ staff to make sure that we're doing it exactly the way they want it done, and that and hopefully we get the answer we'd like to get back. Right now the plant is rated at about 17 MGD. We're hoping we can get a re-rate and up the capacity to maybe 20, maybe even 21 MGD. It's impossible to predict with any precision, but we'll find out as we test the facilities and stress them to the max to find out what we can really push through this plant. The more we can get, the better. Other than the cost of this study, it's essentially free capacity.
I mean, read through a lot of, so my interpretation, again, I just wanted it, this is important that we do this now because of the time frame to be, well, the overall project. This can't be delayed, because if there is issues or concerns or something that come up, we have some time to.
That's correct. As we do our planning on Phase 2, it's important when we approach each of the city councils and the boards with how long the plant capacity is going to last as compared to the demand profile in each of the 3 cities. We need the most accurate information we can have, and so this study will give us that. We don't want to tell people you're going to run out of capacity on date X when in actuality that date might be pushed forward a few months or a year or 2 depending on how this re-rate goes. So it's important to get the information quickly and get it right. So, and we're confident HDR can do it right, or else.
The only question is, would it have to be redone in the future for if some, what would be the incident that would cause us to have to redo it if in the future?
That's an interesting question. I'm not aware of any plant that ever got re-rated for anything other than an extensive reconstruction of the facilities.
Okay.
If we went in 20 years and ripped out the filters and say replaced them with membrane filtration or different technology, I imagine we would have to go through and get the facilities re-rated. But if any of the OC members are aware of anything else out there in Texas that would cause that, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, like, if this is time constrained, if there's some extension in the timing, would we have to redo it? That's my question.
Understood. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions on item 7G? Do I have a motion for item 7G?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of item 7G say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Item 7G passes. Call item 7J. Consider resolution approving the amended BCRUA investment policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a routine item. Our investment advisors, Patterson and Associates, comes back to us generally once a year. I think in this case we may have run a little long on that schedule. But we basically have to constantly update our investment policies to be consistent with any modifications or changes in state rules. Nothing significant has changed this year, but we need to restate who the investment officers are for BCRUA, and by past board action, that's been myself and the finance directors for each of the 3 cities, and you'll find those current positions indicated on the amended changes. Other than that, it's routine.
Yeah, it seemed like there was nothing that was like per se changing policy. It was just updating in accordance with state policy, state regulations and so forth. There, in the area of the, for area item 15, categorizations, they had notes on there, or there were changes, but there was no notes to the right of it that said why those changes were. I mean, they were minor changes, and it doesn't really affect the
Robert,
policy,
can you help me?
but
I don't have that, I've got it in here. I'd have to look.
section
They
15.
showed they showed where the changes, it was basically a red line.
Yeah, there was some redlining, then for every other part of the section of the document. it had
Yeah,
an
there's a comment.
explanation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, which one again was it?
15.
15.
It's on page 8, right? Is that what you?
Yeah, correct. See, there's the red lines, but there was an explanation to the right.
That's
Kind of hard to read.
Yeah, covering repurchase agreements.
Right.
You know, I wish I could answer that for you, Mr. President, but I don't think. My assumption is whatever is redlined in here is the change.
Right.
But as far as the rationale for that or the underlying reason for it, I couldn't tell you right now. We can bring it back and ask them for, oh yeah, Susan's here too.
I think between Robert and I, maybe we can answer.
Good evening. Are we looking on page 8?
Yeah,
Yes.
page 8.
Repurchase
I'm
I'm
agreement?
Susan Morgan, I'm the CFO for the city of Round Rock, so for your
I
record.
got 2 of the 3 here tonight, so back me up.
She's the better half.
Oh, I know.
I'm Robert Powers, Finance Director of the City of Leander. Both of these deal with acceptable collateral, so it's not changing the investment option. Although there is a change in one of the accepted securities, which is
Fans
commercial.
what's acceptable, that's right.
Commercial
I forgot
paper.
about that.
Commercial paper.
Yeah.
On the acceptable collateral, what's been added in there is FHLB letters of credit. With the changes in the banking regulations, typically a bank would hold collateral on a third party in your name. That is harder and harder for banks to do, so what a lot of them do is hold a letter of credit at the Federal Home Loan Bank. We allow that in our investment policy. Our investment advisors have gone and physically looked at them. From Round Rock's standpoint, we were very comfortable with that. We do that as well, and actually it's easier. You don't have to monitor market value of those collateral securities and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But that's becoming the trend because banks have a hard time holding that collateral and meeting their Basel III standards and all that stuff y'all have heard about. So, but and then let me look at that. Second one. And this is just a better spelling out of how the repurchase owned obligations are. So that's adding that language. We can always follow back up with Linda, but we're comfortable with these.
No, that's fine, just.
Glad they were here tonight.
Okay, do I have a motion for 7J?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Item 7J passes.
Mr. President, if I may interject, did we get everything? I thought we missed one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, based on our discussions in executive session, not quite ready for 7F, so if there's no objection, I'd like to go ahead and pull item 7F from the agenda.
That's good.
7F is pulled. Thank you, Tom. And I'll go ahead and call item 8 again. Director, closing comments regarding items of community interest?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the meeting. Adjourn.